Hello friends, today we will discuss about uh, power elite. So let us start now. The concept of power elite was given by C.W. Mills. According to Mills, elite rule is institutional rather than psychological. These aspects were discussed by Pareto and Mosca, that elite rule is psychological, but here Mills is arguing that elite rule is institutional rather than psychological. He argued that power elite comprises those people who occupy command posts in key institutions. So what are according to Mills, there are three key institutions. So Mills identified three key institutions. First one is major corporations, big corporates. Second one is the military, and the third is the ruling political parties. So according to Mills, those who occupy the commanding posts in these institutions form three kind of elites. In practice, however, the interests and activities of these elites are sufficiently similar and interconnected to form a single ruling minority, which Mills termed as the power elite. The power elite involves the coincidence of economic, military and political power. According to Mills, the elites are from similar social background, having similar education, religion and culture, etc. There is also exchange of positions between people occupying key position in these institutions. So they create a small cohesive group. So we have to remember this term, cohesive group. Mills argued that elite rule is institutional rather than psychological. He rejects the view that members of the elite group have superior quality or psychological characteristics which distinguish them from the rest of the population. Instead, he argues that the structure of the key institutions is such that those at the top of the institutional hierarchy largely monopolize power. Mills further argues that the power elite is not accountable for its actions, either directly to the public or to anybody which represent the public interest. The rise of power elite has led to the decline of genuine politics. In Mill's analysis, the bulk of the population is pictured as a passive and cushioned mass controlled by the power elite through the instrument of psychic management and manipulation. So through the instruments of psychic management and manipulation. Unconcerned with the major issues of the day, a man in the mass, that means common man, is preoccupied with his personal world of work, leisure, family and neighborhood. So we can witness easily in Indian society also here. Then individual, a common man is where it is preoccupied with his work, leisure, family and neighborhood. Free from popular control, the power elite pursues its own concerns, power and self-aggrandizement. So this is all about the viewpoint of C.W. Mills. Now let us see about Robert Mitchell, what he has said. He gave the concept the iron law of oligarchy. According to Mitchell, in modern industrial society, The rise of large-scale organizations is inevitable. According to Michels, democracy is not possible without the organization. In large complex society like modern industrial European society, the only way individuals can effectively voice their wishes and press their interest by coming together and forming an organization. Oligarchy, here he gave the concept of iron law of oligarchy. Oligarchy means all powerful groups of few people at the top. According to Mitchell, there is no escape from oligarchy rules. Organizations become so large that direct participation is impossible, so oligarchy is inevitable. For example, in India, very large population, impossible to having direct participation by masses. Hence, representative democracy dominated by ministers and politicians. In current world, international institutions like IMF, WTO, World Bank are dominated by European countries and USA and influencing the decision making and negotiations with the rest of the world. So now let us see what Raymond Aron has said about that. He has talked about communist countries. In communist countries, politicians, trade unions, leaders, public officials, generals and managers of corporations all belong to the power elite. He argued that in a single party communist government, the mass of the population is left without any means of defense against the elite. So Raymond Aron has talked about conditions ruling means power elite in communist countries. Now let us see what Milovan Dijlas has said. That he has argued that in communist society, the higher bureaucrats and the party functionaries act as group of elites, whom he called as the new class. Daniel Bell argued that in post-industrial society, the elite structure will be dominated by scientists, professors, managers, technocrats, and all those people who control the flow of knowledge, because post-industrial society is knowledge society. Now let us see the Indian society and power elites. So M.N. Srinivas, what he has said, actually he did research almost 70 years ago. So he gave the concept of dominant caste. He studied Rampura village in Mysore. The caste he studied was Okalingas of Karnataka, and they are the dominant caste group. What Srinivasan found that Srinivas says that certain criteria are there which decides caste domination in traditional Indian society. Even in modern context also, caste is very dominating. So what are the factors are that? First one is numerical strength. We can easily witness the numerical strength of particular caste dominate the politics. For example, in Bihar and UP we can witness the dominant caste group. Similarly, in Jharkhand also we can find out, in Karnataka also. So here the numerical strength play a very big role. And second one is ownership of land. So generally those who having the numerical strength also having the ownership, large ownership of land. Now what is the third point? Third point is the places in ritual hierarchy, that means caste hierarchy. Fourth, status of education, that means educational level. And fifth one is political clout. So Srinivasan has talked about rural society, and that even 70 years ago. So situations till now has changed, but not to substantial extent. So still these factors dominate power politics in rural as well as in urban areas. Based on above important criteria, a particular caste dominated regardless of social status, cultural position, etc. For example, in UP, Yadav as a particular caste group are very dominating. Now, let us see what Rajni Kothari has said. He has gave the concept of entrenched caste, old elite, and ascendant caste, new elite. That means it is old elite, that means traditional Indian society basically before independence, and ascendant caste, new elite, just after the independence. So rise of ascendant caste due to the following factors. First one is constitutional safeguard. Second, numerical strength for electoral politics. Third, the relative deprivation due to the education and increasing awareness. Fourth, supporting ideologies. And fifth, leadership. So these factors, the rise of the new caste groups as a dominant caste group can be witnessed in North India also, like UP and Bihar, and in Jharkhand also. Now, what Rajni Kothari has said that first 2 decades after independence, decades of vertical mobilization, the entrenched caste, that means traditional elite, leading other caste in political mobilization. For example, first 2 decades, most of the political leadership was from upper caste group. But after few decades, the horizontal mobilization, the ascendant caste forging political mobilization among themselves. For example, new OBC leaders came out like Lalu Yadav, Mulayam Singh Yadav. So they forged political mobilizations among themselves. So we can put the examples of Indian political systems, how it has been evolved and changed during last 70 years. Now, what Rudolf and Rudolph has said, they have gave the concept of bullock capitalist. That means rich farmers who emerged after Green Revolution in 1960s in North India. So here we can put the example of Western Uttar Pradesh and Punjab also and Haryana. Now, Ashok Rudra, what he has said, he get the concept of intelligentsia as ruling class in post-industrial society in India. That means in industrial society, in modern Indian society, it will be the intelligentsia which will be the ruling class. As with every political party, a group of intelligentsia associated. So he has talked about intelligentsia as ruling class. Now, let us see the community power structure, how power is distributed inside community. So let us see what Floyd Hunter has said about all about it based on his study. He tried to test empirically how power is distributed in local community level. He coined the term community power structure. So we have to remember this term. This concept was this term was coined by Floyd Hunter. Hunter carried out a study in Atlanta city in USA. He gave it name the regional city. His methodology was called reputational approach. That means who has the reputation of power is powerful. He prepared a list of 175 leaders who were well known and held important position in political system, business and civil organizations. He selected a panel of 14 judges who were asked to decide who are the most powerful among 175 people. They shortlisted 40 people. He contacted 27 out of these 40 people and asked them to identify 10 most powerful among them. Among 40. Out of 10 most powerful, 5 were healthy businessmen and had close family relationship. That means wealthy businessmen and close family relationship among themselves. They were relative to each other through the intermarriage and economic cooperation. They also influenced economic policies, public opinions and political candidates etc. They also had share in media houses. Thus, Floyd Hunter came to conclusion that a small cohesive group is found to have the most power. So he supported the C.W. Mills concept of power elite. So basically there is a small minority group influence economic policies, public opinions and political candidates. They also had share in media houses. In India we can witness. Thus Floyd Hunter came to conclusion that a small cohesive group is found to have the most power. So he supported the C.W. Mills concept of power elite. Now let us see what Robert Dahl has said. He was a critic of elite theory. He was against the elite theory. He conducted a study at Connecticut, USA and renamed this place as New Haven. His book name was Who Governs. He gave the pluralistic concept of power. He suggested that decision making should be taken as the basis for identifying the distribution of power. He identified 3 major areas of decision making as the scope of power. First one is the economic scope, second political scope and third social scope. He agreed that only a small group of people take decision, but in every scope of power there are different notables. So there are economic, political and social notables. Notables take decisions in their respective scope, socio-economic, political, but do not venture into other scope of power. So according to Robert Dahl, there is elite pluralism of the power because of the multiplicity of notables. So he has talked about elite pluralism because of multiplicity of power. After investigation of local politics in New Haven, Dahl claims that the evidence shows that local politics is a business of bargaining and compromise, with no one group dominating decision making. Dahl rejects the view that economic interests dominate decision making. According to Dahl, economic notables are simply one of the many groups. So Dahl rejects the view that economic interests dominate the decision making. According to him, the economic notables are simply one of the many groups. Now what Arnold Roche has said. Arnold Roche has supported the Dahl's argument of the distribution of power at the local level. Actually Dahl's study was at the local level. Arnold applied the pluralistic concept of power at the national level. In his book, The Power Structure, Roche rejects the view that USA is ruled by a unified power elite and is arguing for a multi-influential hypothesis. That means society consists of many elites, each relatively small with different spheres of life. Roche claims that decisions are often a compromise between the demands of various elites. So now let us see the criticism of Robert Dahl. Elite theorists criticize Robert Dahl for his methodology. They accuse that decision making cannot be the basis for identifying the distribution of power. The real powerful people do not take decision but decide the agenda for decisions making. So actually the powerful decide the agenda for decision making. They make sure that their interests are not compromised in public policy. So those who take decisions are not really powerful, rather act as a front for the real powerful people in society. So we can add more points on criticism of the Robert Dahl. In next lecture, we will discuss about political parties and pressure groups. Okay, thank you very much.